These are the European leaders arriving to fill the void that Donald Trump is creating by siding with Vladimir Putin, Charlie.
Democrats right now do not seem to believe that the president should be able to be the president.
Okay, we have a ton of new meltdowns to go over in this video. We have accusations of Donald Trump siding with Vladimir Putin over Ukraine. We also have a ton of people still upset with Doge and Elon Musk. And we have a European nation prepared to put boots on the ground in Ukraine. So before we start this video, please like the video. It's the #1 way you can help this channel, and it helps others see the videos as well. Let us begin.
To fill the void that Donald Trump is creating by siding with Vladimir Putin, Charlie.
What you are describing is the world order being remade in real time right now. This is not just a simple adjustment. This, again, is the world recognizing that, okay, Donald Trump needs to be taken seriously and literally, and we cannot trust him.
I mean, you heard it straight from MSNBC. They are claiming that Donald Trump has sided with Vladimir Putin and a new world order is being formed. They are referencing a bunch of European leaders had an emergency meeting with Zelenskyy in order to form some sort of peace plan between Ukraine and Russia.
The UK is prepared to back this with boots on the ground and planes in the air. Together with others, Europe must do the heavy lifting.
Now, that was the UK Prime Minister from that European meeting saying we are prepared to put boots on the ground in Ukraine. But I'm going to show you a statistic that the majority of Americans don't want to take this pathway and don't like to hear things like this.
Want a quick end of the war, but Russia still keeps the captured land from Ukraine. Look at this. Look at the majority of Republicans. 74%, 3/4 of Republicans, near unanimity on that particular subject, compared to just 25% who say that they support Ukraine's fight, even if it means a longer-lasting war.
So as you can see, when you look at the statistics, it doesn't look like Donald Trump is siding with Vladimir Putin. It looks like Donald Trump is siding with the group of Americans who voted for Donald Trump, Republicans. And again, you can leave your comments and opinions down below how you feel about all of this.
Are we arming the Russians? Are we providing economic assistance to the Russians? Have we given the Russians $180 billion? What are we doing to play? Again, what is the United Nations for? Isn't it not a forum to promote peace in the world? And shouldn't our president, shouldn't we all be happy that we have a president who's trying to stop wars and prevent them instead of start them?
Now, another very common theme are these hypothetical meltdowns about Russia and Ukraine, but then I will show you a statistic that really challenges these hypothetical meltdowns.
If you are Putin, to your point, if you're Putin right now, you're sitting there thinking, they don't really care about Ukraine, so let's just take the whole thing.
Exactly.
I mean, how do you not conclude that after what you just saw there? Trump spent more time saying that he's gone through so much, so many hard times with Putin.
Now, when you cross-reference that Donald Trump gave $1.5 billion in security assistance to Ukraine, and this is when Russian forces were in Ukraine, it's very difficult to have the position that Donald Trump is buddy-buddies with Vladimir Putin and Russia, considering Donald Trump was helping to fund Ukrainian forces defeat the Russian forces and external threats, meaning more Russian forces.
Look, Zelenskyy made a huge mistake on Friday. All he had to do was show up and sign this deal, and he just couldn't do it. And sometimes these guys, when they put on the military uniform, they have trouble taking it off. He needs to take off the military garb, put on the garb of diplomacy, and understand that he's got an honest new broker on the field who can actually help him end this war, maintain his sovereignty, maintain prosperity for the Ukrainians.
Now, speaking of accusations, another accusation against Donald Trump is that he's doing a bad job as a president and a leader in the United States.
CBS's new poll shows 66% of people don't think he's doing enough to lower prices. It was similar in the CNN polling. How can he turn that around?
Well, number one, I think his job approval overall is actually pretty good when you look at where Joe Biden left office and you look at where congressional Democrats are. In the Quinnipiac survey last week, they were sitting at 21% approval. So as a matter of public opinion, Donald Trump is more popular than any Democrat in the country.
Now, look, Scott Jennings is absolutely correct. When it comes to popularity, Donald Trump is the most popular political figure right now when you compare him to Democrats. Also, Scott Jennings is absolutely correct that these polls tend tend to be a matter of opinion. In this particular poll, I will even show you, things are not so black and white.
Out for the first time right now shows that more than half of Americans, 52%, disapprove of his job in office, although his approval rating of 48% does sit a few points higher from where he was when he first addressed Congress in 2017. He's underwater among most age groups here, at least among younger Americans and older Americans, I should say. 18 to 34-year-olds disapprove of him, from 59% to 41%.
So as you can see, even CNN has to admit Donald Trump is still very popular. And then even when they try to show you all of these different age groups, he's still literally more popular than he's ever been. That is why you have to be a little careful with these polls and statistics. However, when it comes, to the midterms, which we still have a long ways to go, these numbers definitely could either go down or go up. We still have to wait and see.
Instead, we are heading towards a potential government shutdown that will only hurt the American people.
It's amazing to me, by the way, we're having this debate because Joe Biden was president for 4 years and ran the country off into the ditch, and that's why Kamala Harris lost the election. And now Donald Trump's been president for about 5 minutes, and Democrats are like, well, my gosh, why isn't somebody fixing all the problems we caused? I just don't think voters are that silly, really. I mean, I think they take a longer view of this. His report card will ultimately come in the midterms, which isn't until next year. Until then, he's got to get the Republicans in Congress to come along with him on this reconciliation plan, on extending and making permanent the tax cuts, and then the American people are going to give it a chance to work.
Look, I'm not trying to talk about the midterms, and I can tell Scott Jennings is not trying to talk about it either. This is a Democrat talking point. They are literally talking about the midterms already and talking about the government shutting down. That is why Scott Jennings is like, why are we talking about this? We still have so much time to get there. Can we give the man a chance to be the president?
What we've seen from the Trump administration over the last several weeks is just a flood of unprecedented extremism and a parade of horribles that continue to be unleashed on the American people. While at the same time, the Trump administration is not focused on solving the problems of everyday Americans. We're continuing to make sure that we focus on trying to make life better for everyday Americans, fundamentally.
Now, on this channel, what I like to do is try to pinpoint what the next narrative is going to be. And when you have the Democratic leader going on national television and amplifying the points where he knows Donald Trump does not have a lot of favorability in, without a doubt, this is probably going to be the next narrative for the time being. Because if we're going to be honest with ourselves, statistically speaking, if there's one stat that's lower than the others, it's Trump's economy right now as far as the everyday items like eggs or gas prices, things like that.
Democrats right now do not seem to believe that the president should be able to be the president. We have elections for a reason in this country. We vest all executive authority in a president of the United States, not in an unelected bureaucracy, not in independent agencies, but in a president. The president's agenda matters. When a Republican is president, the bureaucracy resists. It has to stop.
That sounds more like a king. It does not sound like
Sounds like our
president of the United
Constitution to me. There's two parties, Dana. One wants bigger government, one wants smaller government. I think I'll take it to the midterms.
I do find it a little shocking when a CNN news anchor calls Donald Trump a king, even though Scott Jennings pointed out, look, Donald Trump is doing everything legally, not only that, legally within the executive branch, and he's not breaking the Constitution. You can leave your comments down below how you feel about all of this, but throughout all of my videos leading up to this video, I always show you guys statistics or polls that really prove the point that when you hate on who Republicans voted for, Donald Trump, there seems to be more and more support for Donald Trump whenever you hear these very negative talking points.
You look closer at the poll, yes, you have Republicans approving by overwhelming amount, you have Democrats disapproving, but the real number is a 59% of independents who don't approve of what he is doing right now. And so things like cutting the government, ensuring that federal government workers like veterans are unemployed, all of those things are taking a toll on Donald Trump. And as we head into the State of the Union, that's not good news for Donald Trump.
I find it so interesting when a CNN news anchor tries to make Donald Trump look bad, but then will admit, however, the majority of Republicans actually do support Donald Trump, considering that's very important since Republicans voted for Donald Trump to be the president.
I think Donald Trump is doing an amazing job so far on the things that he ran on: immigration, The border is, just his taking office, the border is effectively shut down. The attitude change from the federal government effectively closed the border. Look at the people coming across now. Look at the encounters today versus what was going on with Biden. I think on March 4th, you're going to hear them talk a lot about the success on immigration.
Now look, I don't know about you, but I have to keep reminding myself, Donald Trump has really only been the president for like 5 weeks now, and it's very hard to find information on what Donald Trump really has been doing for the economy, and I finally found some information for you.
And I'll tell you, President Trump was elected. One of the reasons was the affordability crisis, and we are setting about doing that. President Trump's been in office 5 weeks, and I can tell you we're working every day. What I will point out, interest rates, the 10-year bond, which I am focused on, have been down every week since President Trump was president. Mortgage rates have been down every week, so that's a pretty good start.
But again, I think it's important not to kid ourselves when it comes to a lower stat or poll. Like I said before, and even Scott Jennings sort of talked about this, Donald Trump doesn't have the best overall stats when it comes to his economics and what he has promised. Again, I think we need to give it some time, considering it's only been 5 weeks, and I know it seems like it's been 5 years already.
You're skipping his joint address to Congress on Tuesday. You believe other Democrats, House and Senate Democrats, should do the same, and why?
Oh, I think every Democrat needs to make up their own mind. I think that State of the Union speech is going to be a farce. I think it's going to be a MAGA pep rally, not a serious talk to the nation. I think Donald Trump is going to spew a series of lies about his alignment with Russia, about what he's trying to do to allow Elon Musk to essentially monetize the American government to enrich Musk and his billionaire crowd. And I'm just not going to be a part of that.
Now, I think Democrats are in a very tough position, and I'm glad this Democrat said he wants other Democrats to make up their own mind. But as far as skipping the joint address that Donald Trump will have, it's going to be very difficult for any Democrats to say that Donald Trump is dividing the country. You know, he's doing all these bad things when a Democrat doesn't even show up to one of these speeches. I think it's very important as members of government to come together, whether or not you're a Democrat or Republican. But again, make sure you're looking out to see if your elected official skips out on this speech, if you are a Democrat.
Well, Donna, I would also point out, if we want to do a history lesson on Churchill, that he stood and fought for his people. President Zelenskyy stood and fought for Ukraine. But Churchill was also voted out of office in 1945. He was a man for a moment, but he did not then transition England into the next phase. And it's unclear whether President Zelenskyy, particularly after what we saw Friday, is ready to transition to Ukraine to an end to this war.
Now, I actually want to give a little credit to CNN. We're not seeing a lot of these transitional talks as far as what is Zelenskyy going to do next if he does sign the peace deal. And a lot of people are hopeful that he will sign the peace deal. However, there seems to be a lot of hesitancy from the Trump administration as to what exactly this is all going to look like. Once a peace deal is signed, what is going to be the actual future for Ukraine?
And to negotiate and have to compromise. Yeah. And what President Trump said right there that day in the Oval Office is both sides are going to compromise here. He's made that clear to both Vladimir Putin and Zelenskyy, but it did not appear to us that Zelenskyy was ready to go to peace. Yeah. So when he makes that clear to us, publicly and privately, that's the president is trying to end this war. He campaigned on it. He was elected on it. And that's going to take tough diplomacy.
Now, to circle back to whether or not Donald Trump supports Ukraine or Russia, we now have a definitive statement that, look, both of you guys are going to have to give something up. But as far as the topic of, do you still want Zelenskyy around if we do support Ukraine, as in United States supports Ukraine with this mineral deal? Here's an interesting answer.
Can I just follow up on what you said about Winston Churchill, because it is interesting. He was definitely a man for the moment during World War II. Are you suggesting that President Trump wants Zelenskyy to resign?
We need a leader that can deal with us, eventually deal with the Russians, and end this war. And if it becomes apparent that President Zelensky's either personal motivations or political motivations are divergent from ending the fighting in his country, then I think we have a real issue on our hands.
Now again, I can't find any other clips or talking points really speaking on this particular topic because we still have to get a peace deal going. Now, if you are still watching this video, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for interacting in the comments. I love to see what you guys have to say. Even if you disagree with me, I love that you guys are giving very educated comments. Thank you so much. And thank you again for being here. God bless you guys. We have so much work to do. This is a 24-hour operation. This is a non-stop thing, and I couldn't do this without you guys. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you guys later.